Is the Philadelphia Eagles championship window quietly cracking from the inside, or are we witnessing the messy, violent birth of an absolute juggernaut? Welcome to the heat of training camp, where the pads finally collided for the first time in South Philadelphia, and what unfolded on the field was nothing short of total chaos. If you look closely at the turf today, you didn't just see football players sweating through the August heat. You saw a multi-million-dollar machine screeching violently against the gears of a brand-new, unproven system. Balls hitting the turf, penalties piling up like unpaid debt, frustration boiling over into the Philadelphia air. And yet, beneath the alarming drops and the pre-snap penalties lies a chilling question that every single person wearing midnight green is too afraid to ask out loud. Is this disaster waiting to happen? Or is this the exact kind of brutal friction required to forge an ironclad contender? Because what happens next in this training camp is going to dictate whether this franchise storms through the NFC or crashes headfirst into a wall of its own making. Step onto the practice fields in South Philadelphia on a scorching August morning, and the atmosphere changes the second the pads go off and the real hitting begins. Non-padded practices are a playground, a place where routes look clean, timing looks crisp, and optimism runs high. But the moment the pads snap into place, the illusion vanishes. The offense didn't just struggle. They looked entirely unglued. Passes that should have been routine completions slipped through fingertips and fell dead to the turf. Pre-snap penalties, those agonizing, self-inflicted wounds that drive coaching staffs straight to the edge of insanity, flashed like warning lights across the unit. Whether it was down in the red zone, trying to punch the ball across the goal line, or attempting to engineer a simple, fluid drive down the field, the gears were grinding to a halt. Panic instantly swept through the crowd and echoed across message boards and comment sections. Fans are already asking the inevitable. Are we looking at a broken offense? Take a step back, take a breath, and look at the calendar. It is early August. The regular season opener is still weeks away, giving this team a vital cushion of time. But more importantly, look at the architecture of what is happening. This is not a polished machine running a comfortable, familiar playbook. This is a brand new offensive scheme, a radical departure from everything this team ran under previous coordinators and coaches like Nick Sirianni, Kevin Patullo, Brian Johnson, Shane Steichen, and Kellen Moore. Installing a totally new offensive philosophy is never clean. It is messy, it is frustrating, and it is intentionally disruptive. But the plot thickens even further when you realize who they are practicing against every single day. If you want to build an offense capable of surviving the deepest trenches of the NFL playoffs, you don't test it against a weak defense. You throw it straight into the jaws of one of the most elite defensive units in the entire league. That is the hidden reality behind these early struggles. Every single day in practice, this new, learning curve-heavy offense is walking into a buzzsaw. They are trading blows with a defense that knows how to disguise coverages, swarm the backfield, and punish every mental lapse. If the coaching staff wanted to pad their stats and build false confidence, they could have designed a softer installation against a lesser defense. Instead, they chose the hard road. They chose to callous this offense through elite competition. It is uncomfortable, it causes drops, and it leads to ugly sequences on the practice field, but is forging a toughness that will matter when the live bullets start flying in winter. Yet, the scheme isn't the only thing working against the offense right now. A silent, creeping shadow has entered the locker room, and its name is the injury bug. Depth is the invisible currency of the NFL. You can have all the star power in the world, but the moment the injury report starts piling up, even the most carefully constructed roster begins to fray at the edges. And right now, the edges are looking awfully thin in Philadelphia. Picture this. Jalen Hurts dropping back to pass, looking downfield and scanning his protection, only to realize he is operating behind a makeshift, heavily depleted offensive line. Veteran anchor Lane Johnson has missed consecutive practices due to excused, non-injury absences, forcing younger pieces like Marquise Bell to step into the fire at right tackle. Look out at the skill positions, and the picture grows even more dramatic. with injuries forcing a rapid shuffle of the deck. Names like Jahan Dotson or newly acquired weapons like Danavine Wick's thrust into primary roles have had to elevate instantly. The standard starters aren't always out there. At various points, Hurts has looked up to find himself throwing primarily to elite anchors like Saquon Barkley and Dallas Goedert, while the rest of the rotation scrambles to fill the void. And that brings us to the most troubling storyline of the entire summer: the health of the wide receiver room. Devonta Smith was forced to watch from the sidelines, nursing a hamstring injury that kept him out of action. But the real anxiety in the building centers elsewhere. When a young playmaker who suffered a hamstring setback back in the spring encounters another soft tissue issue in the summer, alarms start blaring. Whether it's the exact same leg or a different one, the mere existence of recurring hamstring injuries for a player expected to carry a massive load following major offseason roster shifts is a nightmare scenario. Soft tissue injuries don't just go away. They linger, they flare up, and they wait for the worst possible moment to strike. Add in brief scares like Cooper DeJean dealing with an arm injury before returning under the watchful eyes of the trainers, and you have a team walking a tightrope over a canyon of potential disaster. Inside the walls of the facility, the message remains outwardly calm, anchored by coaches who have seen all before. The expectation was never perfection on day one. It was relentless competition. Every single snap in camp is a battleground. Players aren't just fighting the defense. They're fighting for their roster spots, their snap counts, and their survival in the league. Alignment, assignment, and execution, the holy trinity of football discipline, are being tested down to the millimeter. When a pre-arising penalty happens, it represents a mental error, a failure of communication in the noise. The coaching staff acknowledges the progress, noting that the competitive fire is burning exactly where it needs to be. But make no mistake, behind closed doors, the demand for cleaner execution is absolute. Which leads to the burning question you need to ask yourself right now. With the injury bug biting early and a brand new scheme struggling to find its footing, are you genuinely worried about this offense? Or is this just standard August noise? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Despite the frustrating moments and the crowded injury tents, a closer inspection of the training camp tape reveals fascinating glimpses of an offense on the verge of a breakthrough. Take a look at the evolution of Jalen Hurts. For years, critics have pointed to specific limitations in where and how he operates within an offense. But in this new scheme, a profound transformation is quietly taking place. Hurts is embracing the challenge of operating heavily from under center, a foreign landscape for much of his professional career. Even more encouragingly, he is consistently locating and completing high-difficulty passes over the middle of the field. If Hurts masters the under-center game and unlocks the intermediate middle of the field, the ceiling of this entire offense shatters open. And he isn't doing it alone. A burgeoning chemistry is developing between Hurts and newly acquired wide receiver Danavine Wicks, who has turned heads by stringing together dominant practices and capitalizing on his expanded opportunities. Meanwhile, young playmakers are flashing with the kind of explosive consistency that forces the coaching staff to clear a path to the field for them on Sundays. Up front, the foundation is beginning to stabilize. Landon Dickerson has shed weight, arrived at camp looking remarkably lean and healthy, and is moving with elite fluidity. Cam Jurgens is putting last year's brutal back surgery further and further in the rearview mirror, regaining the anchor strength that makes the interior line so lethal. If this offensive line can return to the dominant form they showcased in previous years, a revitalized running game will follow, and that will unlock a trickle-down effect that makes the entire playbook unstoppable. While the offensive installation grabs the headlines, a quiet revolution has been happening on the other side of the ball, completely reshaping the narrative of this training camp. Coming into the summer, the safety position was viewed as the most glaring vulnerability on the roster, a massive question mark that many expected front office architect Howie Roseman would eventually be forced to address via emergency trades before September. Instead, the safety room has transformed into an unexpected fortress of strength. Andrew Makuba, entering his critical second year, has looked completely comfortable commanding the secondary, playing with instincts that belie his youth. Beside him, veteran Marcus Epps provides a steady, calming hand, eliminating explosive plays and keeping the coverage shell intact. Then there's the sheer versatility injected into the unit. Players like Michael Carter II are turning training camp into their personal showcase, displaying the rare ability to drop back into deep safety responsibilities one play and slide down to lock down the slot the next. He punctuated that versatility by jumping a route and intercepting a pass right out of the air during practice. Even with depth pieces like CJ, Garner Johnson, or others dealing with occasional physical maintenance, the depth behind them is holding strong. Out on the edge, the pass rush is breathing fire, with dominant names commanding attention and younger disruptors like Arnold Ebiketie and AJ Epinesa consistently collapsing the pocket during camp drills. The defensive front is suffocating. The depth in the edge rusher room is looking deeper and more dangerous than it has in years. Football in August is a psychological warfare game. It preys on our fears, magnifies every drop pass, and turns minor practice hiccups into perceived existential crises. Yes, the offenses look sloppy at times. Yes, the injury report has forced us to hold our breath every time a star player walks off the turf. And yes, the transition to a brand new system is going to extract a toll in blood, sweat, and early season growing pains. But beneath the chaotic surface of training camp lies a team that is intentionally stressing its own systems, testing its limits, and forging a tougher identity against elite competition. The pieces are there. The physical tools are developing. The defense is exceeding every baseline expectation. The storm is here, but so is the shelter. And when the calendar finally turns and the real games begin, we're about to find out exactly what this team is made of.